Hey, what's ready? Welcome back to News Dose, and it's the eve of Christmas. So I hope everybody has a jolly good time. Make sure to be safe out there. But we actually got an early gift this year because an Xbox game got hit by a leak. And this is for an IP that fans have been begging for a very, very long time. I mean, we're talking about decades of begging by this point. But unfortunately, one box was filled with coal this year because it also sounds like game developers are raring to ramp up the price for us gamers yet again. And if this actually happens, I can only imagine the reaction online and how that could also devastate the AAA industry even more so than it already has been. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go get right into things, though, starting off with the Danganronpa series. Now, I do have a soft spot for this franchise because it was actually among my favorites back on the PlayStation Vita. I mean, to this day, I think the Vita is one of the most underrated consoles ever made. I truly do believe that, and a part of that is because of gems like Danganronpa. I mean, it's this very dark, visual novel type of experience, and I get it. These type of games do tend to be a little bit more on the niche side of things. But man, I'm telling you right now, these are some of the best visual novel-like games that you're ever going to experience. And, well, it seems like the mass audience agrees with me on that because the Danganronpa series has officially surpassed 10 million units shipped, which is incredible for a game within this genre. Again, they do tend to be a little bit more on the niche side of things, so just incredible stuff, and really, it's well-deserved. If you haven't already played these games, though, they're pretty much available on every platform now, so definitely go check them out. They get a huge recommend from me. And this news also comes just ahead of Danganronpa 2x2, which will be out next year in 2026. So it's really the perfect time to jump in to the Danganronpa series. Now, we also got a nice little update for Fantasy Life I. I know there's some people out there that have become incredibly addicted to this game, and that's even after they've completed all of its content. Well, now you have an actual excuse to jump back in because they just released a free update which includes a new roguelite open world area titled Snoozeland. Yeah, you can see here where they said it can be accessed by investigating the suspicious tent that appears in the northeast area of the base camp. And it's kind of hard to tell how much content this will actually have given on this information alone, but I mean, do keep in mind that it also includes plenty of other things as well, and, well, it's free, and you really can't beat free. In fact, Level 5 really has been one of the better companies this year at being consumer-friendly. They also launched a physical Switch 2 edition back in August, and as we all kind of know by this point, true physical Switch 2 games from third-party companies have been rare out of the gate. So, kudos to Level 5 for really everything that they've done for fans in 2025. Also, I know there's been a lot of hopium for a Zelda Twilight Princess HD port for the Switch, and, well, now apparently for the Switch 2, because for whatever reason, Nintendo just never ported it. I mean, despite Zelda quite literally being one of their most important franchises, especially on the Switch, Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD are some of the only Wii U games that haven't been ported over to the Switch consoles, which is honestly both sad and crazy at the same time. I mean, I really don't know what Nintendo is doing, but the good news is that Twilight Princess has been decompiled, and that basically means that a native PC port will likely follow here in the coming months. Now, how long the wait will actually be is still a bit of a mystery. But if you look at the Ocarina of Time PC port as an example, I mean, its PC port only came a few months after it got decompiled, but to be fair, that's also a much smaller game than Twilight Princess. So theoretically, it could take a bit longer for Twilight Princess, but all in all, a PC port is likely on the way sometime here soon, and that means that it could get all kinds of upgrades when it eventually hits. Alright, now since we're in the business of good news right now, let's just go and keep the good vibes rolling, or at least for this one last topic, because a big Xbox announcement seems to have leaked out ahead of time, and that's for a game that we've frequently talked about on the channel. Yes, Spyro 4. This time, though, the source is incredibly interesting because this one comes directly from somebody who allegedly worked on the game. This was posted up on LinkedIn by a senior concept artist that worked with Toys for Bob from 2022 to 2024. Now, keep in mind, a part of that timeline was before Xbox freed Toys for Bob from Activision, and that's important to understand because, as you can see, they listed a couple of franchises that they worked on, one being Call of Duty, which would have been before the Microsoft acquisition went through. If you remember right, Activision basically had all of their studios working on Call of Duty, including Toys for Bob. That was actually one of the reasons that Toys for Bob wanted to be free of Activision in the first place. They didn't want to work on Call of Duty. They wanted to work on the franchises that they are passionate for. So they escaped Activision and signed a contract with Xbox to work on one of their now owned franchises. So just kind of knowing Toys for Bob and the games that they like to work on, there's really only 3 games that comes to mind when it comes to that contract. 1 is Crash Bandicoot, 2 is Banjo-Kazooie, and 3 being the most likely is Spyro the Dragon. And lo and behold, the other game that they listed is in fact Spyro the Dragon, which has been heavily rumored for a few years now. And no, this could not have been for Spyro Reignited. That game launched way back in 2018, so whatever Spyro game this person worked on is something not related to Spyro Reignited. But yeah, if you just look at Toys for Bob and their history, Spyro 4 always made the most sense for their next game. For one, they already tackled Crash Bandicoot 4, which is a fantastic game, but if you've played it, they made it abundantly clear that Spyro was also on their mind. You know, at the time, it almost seemed like they were teasing that to be their next big project until, of course, Activision stepped in and forced them onto the Call of Duty franchise. But that's kind of where that contract from Xbox comes in. Their original announcement for that contract was to keep your horns out, which seemed to be a direct play on Spyro the Dragon. Also, if you look at their new company logo, it's purple for, as you guessed, Spyro the Dragon. So I don't think this news comes as some kind of massive shock for anybody who's been paying attention. It seems to have been pretty clear for a while this is what they're working on. But even still, I do think that its official announcement is going to surprise a lot of people because I think it's coming sooner than what a lot of people realize. I mean, Canadian Guy A has pointed to 2026 over and over and over again as the most likely planned release window for Spyro 4. So as long as he's correct, which, I mean, he definitely has his sources and, he does a lot of investigative work on this type of stuff. So if he's correct, then its announcement could actually come as early as next month at the Xbox Developer Direct. I mean, that would be a massive announcement for them and a great way for them to celebrate Xbox's 25th anniversary. They could come out and simply put out a small teaser trailer of Spyro flying and then say, hey, Spyro is back in 2026. I mean, that would cause an eruption online just considering how long people have begged for this game. But, at the same time, I'm not sure how Xbox is going to approach its announcement. And what I mean by that is that it's technically an Activision IP, and they do announce their games a little bit different than Xbox does, so it could always happen elsewhere. The Xbox Summer Showcase is another likely candidate, but I don't know. Xbox did sign that contract with them, so it would kind of fall in lines of Xbox Studio games, so maybe they're handling it instead of Activision. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Either which way, though, us Spyro fans, by all indication, are about ready to have a fun year in 2026. Now, one more thing before we go, though, and unfortunately, the good news stops here because according to a new report, AAA publishers are craving a price hike for video games. Yeah, apparently $70 isn't quite enough for these AAA studios. Instead, according to a former Call of Duty creative director, he said that a $100 game is going to happen eventually. You just don't want to be the first person to do it. All the publishers are waiting. Once you do it once and stick a $100 price tag on your game, it's just going to go up across the industry. Other games will follow. And we have heard a little bit about this in previous reports. It's been reported that developers are really hoping that GTA 6 jacks up the price. That way they can follow suit. But my thing about that is that he also pointed out that the Outer Worlds tried to move up to $80 just earlier this year. Now, importantly, that did not work out for Xbox. They had to backtrack on that price. But the fact is that we have seen some push for $80, both from Nintendo and from Xbox. So, to an extent, I agree with his assessment that companies are absolutely trying to find a way to inch that price up. I mean, if you look at modern AAA budgets, they're quite frankly outrageous. I mean, AAA games just last generation could be made for around $100 million. But now here we are, and we now have games like Spider-Man 2 that reportedly cost around $300 million to make. So in other words, if your budget is triple the amount of games from last generation, well then that also drastically raises the bar for how many copies a game needs to sell, which in a lot of cases just isn't realistic. So that's the big issue that these publishers are looking at. They're thinking to themselves, well, okay, we're not selling more units to make up for these out-of-control budgets, but why not just raise the price for our games? That will surely fix the problem. But see, my issue with that is that they then risk even less copies being sold. I mean, again, if you look at Xbox and The Outer Worlds 2, there's a reason that they backtracked on its original $80 price tag. You know, they didn't do that out of the kindness of their heart. Businesses aren't like that. They did it because nobody was pre-ordering it. So I don't know. I think these AAA studios are backing themselves into a corner with their out-of-control budgets. I mean, sure, could GTA 6 come out at a higher than normal price tag and still sell millions upon millions of units? Sure. But just like Mario Kart World, not every game has the brand power to get away with a move like that, which is exactly what happened to The Outer Worlds 2. Just because Mario Kart World can push $80 does not mean a game like The Outer Worlds 2 can do the same. So I think these companies are in for a rude awakening if they want to follow suit with a game like GTA 6 if it moves up in price. I think they're in for a rude awakening if they want to move to $100. Their games will more than likely fail miserably at that price. Now, however, what I will say is that what I would expect is for companies to gradually increase price over time. Jumping straight to $100, that does not make any sense to me, but I wouldn't be shocked if price moves up to, let's say, $75 here in the next couple of years. And then at some point after that, they'll then try for $80 and so on and so forth. So I think price will increase over time because companies are clearly craving it, but it'll be a lot more gradual than going straight to $100. Let me know what you all think about all this, though. Do you think price will go up yet again? And at what point do you think price will doom the AAA industry? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.